Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Cinnamon Chat with Amita, Sri Lanka's first LinkedIn live talk show. I would like to welcome everyone who is joining on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. It's another Thursday in the new year. So, what are you up to? Are you tired working for about few days in the new year now? A lot of us are back on physical meetings, physical sessions. We are getting back to offices here in Sri Lanka, even though some countries are going into some virtual modes. So, wherever you are, I would like to welcome you to Sri Lanka's first LinkedIn Live talk show. So, let me talk a little bit about myself. My name is Amita Gamage. I'm an executive coach. I love coaching CEOs, and I'm a personal branding strategist. And I advocate digital transformation, and I help B2B sales organizations achieve their goals by working with their teams. How about you? If you are joining this show right now, just let us know from where are you joining and just say hi. It would be great to see uh, that you are coming and patronizing the show, commenting, liking, sharing. And today I have a special guest. I have a software engineer. And if you have any software engineers in your network, invite them to come here. And I'm going to disappoint you because we are not going to talk about software today. This software engineer is very, very important for our mother Lanka. He's also an important person for the earth, for the nature. Why? Why is he different? Why is he special? So let us invite Srianta Pereira to the show. Good evening, Srianta.
Good evening, Amita. Thank you for having me on your program.
Yeah. Okay. So we generally dig into the past whenever there is a guest. So today I'm going to dig a little bit into your past about your school time and your younger days uh, before we really introduce you to the show. But then along the way, I will introduce you properly with the questions and answers. I think the audience will get to know you better. So, Sriyanta, professionally, you are a software engineer, but why you are here is not because you are a professional engineer, but you are doing a much more deeper, greater, and a noble work in our country. Before I talk about it, so let's dig into your past. Uh, what was your childhood like? School time, right? Were you born in the village?
Yes. Actually, I'm a city boy, so I was
Oh,
actually born and lived in Ratmalana throughout my younger childhood, and I went to St. Joseph's College in Colombo 10.
okay.
Every day, a lot of travel between Ratmalana and Colombo 10, Mardana, and back. So. Uh, Yes, I wish sometimes you know I could have been born as a village boy because there's some things that village boys enjoy, uh, born in Colombo, I was more of a city boy.
Yeah, okay. And then what happened to your higher education?
Yes,
I'm also trying to figure out, whether you had an interest towards software and all at the early stage.
yes, actually I did uh, when I was around I think it was eighth grade when my parents bought the first PC. Uh,
Okay.
and back then there was no internet and no Facebook, nothing, right? So you had this PC. It's pretty much a useless piece of machine. I mean, it's a big dumb machine, right?
The floppy disk era.
Exactly. So you had some games on the floppy disk I used to play, but other than that, so it's a pretty dumb machine. But I was interested in coding it to do something. So I got into like programming in BASIC and all, and I remember doing like I hate to memorize stuff, like read books and memorize stuff. So I used to kind of write small programs where I would feed the data from the books, that like chemistry and all the data, into the uh, programming language, and it would ask me random questions. Okay, what is the formula for this? What is the formula? That's how that helped me like learn much faster than because I hate reading and
Writing and
memorizing.
memorizing.
Yes.
Okay.
So I did. So once I did A levels, then I did 2 years at Institute of Technological Studies in Narayanpeta.
Mhm.
I wanted to become a computer. I wanted to pursue computer science, and then after 2 years there, I basically moved to US to complete my studies and finish my bachelor's in computer science in US.
Okay, great. So let's say hi to few of our friends. We have Tamit joining us from Panadura side. Hi, Tamit. He's a usual person who comes always and support us. And then we have Savindu. A nice discussion, Savindu. Thank you very much for coming to watch the show, ask questions. Shanjad also is here. Great discussion. Thank you. And Tamit says very interesting discussion. Yeah, Tamit, we are about to get into the interesting part of it yet. You know, uh, so if you have any questions that you want to ask, I mean, you will wait for one or two questions and then you will realize why I am interviewing him, and then you will have other questions to ask from him. So I know now what made you choose software, because it's the computer that came home, and then you were not interested in memorizing things.
Yeah.
So you develop a small software to help you study. So uh, I think having a computer at home, sometimes it could change your uh, destination, your journey in the future, isn't it? So what do you do now as a software engineer? You are still coding or
Yes, very much so. Because I kind of like coding than managing people, honestly. Uh, I don't know, like, I mean, there's something into coding that I like, right? So
no? We
I work
need we
for,
need hardcore coders.
yeah,
This world needs them. So you are one of them.
yes. Uh, so I work for a software company that's in the healthcare industry, and we have a EHR application. EHR meaning electronic health record, and
Yeah.
this EHR application is used by physicians and in hospitals when they are treating cancer patients, because they have to go
Okay.
through all these treatment cycles. So that is what I'm doing right now, and I'm enjoying.
Okay. So here we get into the real question. You are a professionally software engineer, but why I'm interviewing you here is because you have fallen in love with the nature. So my next question is, when did you fall in love with trees, specifically trees? Some love the earth, some love the river, some love the ocean, but you love trees. When did you fall in love with trees? Can you go back in history?
Yes, I think I fell in love with trees around when I was 11 years old. Uh, Interestingly enough, before that, I used to hate trees because I used to play cricket with the village. I mean, the kids around our
Neighborhood.
neighborhood in Ratmalana, and the ball would go in the tree, behind the tree, or there's bushes, and then it's hard to find the ball. So I was getting mad about that. But yeah, in the end, I was playing too much cricket and not focusing on studies. My grades went down, so I had to, focus more on the studies. And so so after that, so going, traveling between Ratmalan and Maradan, and come back, and after a hard day, like stressful day, I needed some break, and that's when around 11 years of age, that's when I kind of uh, went outside my garden and connecting with nature. Now we only had like 13 push land and a house there, a small house, so not a whole lot of things nature related, but we did have one large mango tree and a few small guava trees and some flowering trees. And I remember, like, that was kind of a micro ecosystem. There was always like the kondakurulas,
Birds.
mynas, polkichas, butkichas, and my favorite was there was a purple sunbird, which is called damsutika, I think. Yeah. So there's always lots of birds and butterflies, and that's when I kind of I used to spend at least half an hour to 1 hour every day relaxing. It was kind of meditation for me before going and doing homework again. So yeah, that's when I really connected with nature.
Okay, great. So, so can you explain the journey from that point onwards? So, you became a software engineer. Now you anyway love trees, but then uh, you wanted to do something about the trees, right? Uh, Now I know you are the Settler Rainforest Protectors Trust in Sri Lanka. Now that journey didn't start at once. So maybe now you are a software engineer. How did you get into this, the journey? When did it start?
Yeah, so as I said, around 11 years of age, I connected with nature and became a nature lover. But there's another progress we have to make from nature lover to be like a conservationist, and that quite happened pretty fast to me as well, because at that time, my elder brother, used to buy the Vidusara newspaper, the science
Okay.
paper, and I also happen to read it, and every now and then there will be articles saying this forest is being completely cut down, a lot of trees here, a lot of acres cut down in this forest, and I was thinking, I was upset and disappointed, feeling sometimes feeling hopeless, but I also that kind of brought a call to action on me, like saying we need to do something about it. This is not sustainable. If this continues, we are eventually going to lose all the forests. So
Yeah.
that's so soon after I connected with nature, that also happened, and within months, I think I became a conservationist. I started planting trees, a lot of trees on my little family land, wherever I could find. I used to plant trees.
Space. Yeah.
Yes, but I realized that. Um, I can plant trees, but somebody's going to eventually cut it down, right?
Yeah.
If it's a private land.
Yeah.
Um, and so then I decided, okay, uh, uh, I needed to buy my own land and plant trees, which I did. So I have a beautiful 2 acres close to Karnataka Airport, in an area called Andiambalam, Valpola. And
Okay.
when I go there today, like I bought it about 13 years ago now. Now when I go there, it's kind of a mini rainforest in 2 acres. Not
Seriously?
yeah,
Okay.
not all neighbors are happy to have a rainforest, but you go there and the land also had some giant hora trees, which are hora is the native lowland rainforest tree in Sri Lanka,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
those are usually found in Sinharaja. But this land that I own now has the last remaining hora trees in probably the entire Gampahan district, and I mean those are like skyscrapers. They grow very tall. And if you want to see how Colombo or the suburbs were like 100 years ago, I can go there and see myself, and it's like going back in time machine.
So
But
when you come to Sri Lanka, or whenever you are free, I think I should come with you.
yes, definitely, yeah. But still, I was not satisfied because I know like that land, that piece of forest will be protected as long as I live, and I won't live forever either, right? And that's the conservationist in me, right? The conservationist always thinks about the past, present, and the future.
Future.
right? Its future is important, and I was concerned. Okay, if somebody's going to cut this anyway after I die, I'm not going to live forever. So that's when I decided, okay, to really protect forest forever, like for the long term, right? We need to really protect the existing forests and creating buffer zones to protect the existing forest reserves. And that's when I first started Rainforest Protectors of Sri Lanka as a volunteer group back in uh, around 2010. We had our first meeting in 2012, and since then we have been doing a lot of reforestation, but mostly, importantly, more than reforestation is uh, exposing these deforestation issues and uh, and also working with the authorities, the government's authorities and stakeholders to address both the short-term issues, right, immediate deforestation issues, as well as advocating for policy changes for the conservation of forests in the long term, and that's been going on for a long time. And I I kind of forgot to mention a few things. I think I should go back a little bit.
Yeah, Shriyanta, give me a second. This is for those who are joining us right now. Shriyanta Pereira is a professionally a software engineer. And if you are here to listen to him on software coding, software engineering, I'm disappointing you. He's talking about protecting rainforests. Just listen to him. Uh, I don't know. I don't think you have a degree in environmental science or something like that, but then your knowledge is amazing, right? Having a small land in Nigambu side where you have horror trees and amazing story. So those who are joining me right now, listen to the rest of the story. There's a lot of new things that he's going to reveal to us, and then we are going to support him in this journey of, because he's he's helping all of us. So we are actually not helping him. We are going to help ourselves, I guess, at the end of the day. Continue, please.
Yes, so we were talking about how I got into conservation, but
Yep.
especially because I wanted to protect these trees and forests for the long term. But parallelly, another thing was happening, right? So I was interested more in Sinharaja rainforest. Now, remember, I was in Ratmalan all my childhood. We didn't do a whole lot of traveling, and I've never set foot on a rainforest till
Yeah.
I finished my A-levels. Uh, but I was reading. I was reading about the past history of Sinharaja rainforest. Now, when we talk about rainforest, Singaraja comes number one. But by the way, it's not the only rainforest, but it comes number one because it is the largest lowland and submountain rainforest, but it's also the home for most of Sri Lanka's endemic flora and fauna, which is trees and animals that are only found in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
But so I was starting to read more about Singaraja rainforest and realizing that, okay, back in the 70s, even a little bit, few years before I was born, right, Singaraja rainforest was almost destroyed because back then the private corporation was actually cutting down a lot of trees in Singaraja, uh, to convert to timber. And this has happened for a long time, 5, 6, 7 years, I believe, early 70s, and back then there was no internet, right? There was no technology whatsoever, but still a passionate group of environmentalists, scientists, educators, and school children. They got together somehow, right? And they protested for a long time, several years until I believe it was in 1977 when finally, because of the public pressure, they stopped logging Singaraj. And then,
Wow. So
uh,
there was a time the government uh, give up certain projects because of the pressure of the public.
Yes.
Not anymore, I guess.
Yes, it took several years, right? I don't know. I mean, obviously it was before my time, but them those who protested might have felt helpless at times, but they did not give it up, right? They continued and till it was stopped several years later. And not only they stopped it, actually, that action, the public action, resulted in Sinharaja becoming larger, like the gazetted area of what is known as Sinharaja, right? Because initially it was gazetted during the 1800s by the British, a small area, saying, okay, this is Sinharaja. But it was like, I don't know, maybe 10% of the entire Sinharaja, they gazetted as a Sinharaja. But so because of these protests in the 70s, 1970s, uh, eventually the login was stopped and Sinharaja was gazetted as an expanded area. But still, it was not the entire forested area. Still, it was only about 50% of the forest area was gazetted as Sinharaja. And then fast forward to around 2011, we have this issue of new road construction happening through pristine area uh, called Ilimbakanda and Suryakanda. So the road was to connect Ilimbakanda to Suryakanda on the other side, but that there has been a small path, a footpath, but now the government was trying to build a wide road where
Motorable.
heavy vehicles, lorries can go, uh, and this was through a pristine area. And you know what happens, like once you build a road through the rainforest, once you cut a road through the rainforest, is
You
first
divide
thing.
the forest.
Exactly. Immediately, all the small animals, like obviously amphibians, reptiles, they get squashed, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
vehicles start going over them, they die. Uh, Birds die of collisions, and then you have pollution, you have noise pollution, you have or solid waste
Garbage
pollution,
dumping,
garbage
you name
dumping,
it.
and then comes the shops, and the shops kind of encroach the size, and then
And
comes
then you have the hotels and then the
yeah,
toilets and then you name it.
yes. So we see that all. I mean, we see that through Wilpattu, we see that through Sinharaja. You can name it. Once a road is built through the forest is gone. It's fragmented. Animals can't cross it, and com- complete deforestation happens. So it was important to stop that because it was a pristine area of rainforest, and there's a lot of environmentalists working to stop that. And I also joined them. Uh, we wrote a lot of letters. We got a lot of educated scientists also involved. And again, this was one of the rare victories. And thanks to especially, I think, Professor Nimal Gunatilik also played a big role there. He headed the scientific committee and recommending that this area we should uh, we should not cut the road through this area. Like the roads can be developed up to Ilmukanda, but not from here to Suryakanda.
So there
And
was a time that the governments listened to scientists.
yes, quite ironically, even I couldn't believe my eyes. Right, and I think the then environment minister was also quite accommodating for that. Under Priyadarshini, I personally wrote a letter for him, and I know it was delivered. Uh, uh, and one of we had a contact who basically explained it to him, and he kind of agreed that something needs to be done. So we are grateful for him, and it's one of those uh, rare victories, right? Because as an environmentalist, as a conservationist, we wake up and 99% of the time we hear bad news, and that's it's frustrating and it's very tough on us. And sometimes these rare victories are very great. And but even then, I was not like there's something missing because okay, we know it's a matter of time before this pops up again, right? Because this
Yes.
area was still not gazetted. It was supposed to be annexed to Sinharaja, but it was not completed. So we kept on fighting. Through Rainforest Protectors of Sri Lanka, we wrote a lot of letters. We even met the Conservator General to say, hey, you need to speed this thing up because usually for development project, government is fast to act. Right? They acquire the lands within months, and
Yeah,
you are
overnight.
yeah. But when it comes to protecting a forest or a national park, it takes
They're
like
very
this thing
slow
has
to act.
yeah. Honestly, this thing has been going for a couple of decades, right? Environmentalists have been telling the Forest Conservation Department, hey, you need to annex all these forest lands, which are all already under government but under different institutions. Like some of them are under the Land Reforms Commission. So they just need to talk to the other government agency and say, okay, this is part of Sinharaja. We need to acquire and protect it. That's all they need to do. And it takes, yeah, interestingly, it takes two decades to do that. But so somehow our organization and other environmentalist organizations, educators, they all have been working. And finally, in 2019, November, that's when they expanded Singaraja, like they acquired all this area and gazetted as the Singaraja National Reserve Forest of 36,000 hectares. But uh, but the but we still have a lot more work, and I think I don't know if you have any other questions, but before we get into the Rainforest Protectors Trust,
Yeah. So, yeah, can you talk a little bit about the overall Sinharaja forest?
yes,
Apart from what you just told me about, where your interest is in the Sinharaja forest. But overall, if you talk about Sinharaja forest, I'm, I'm so interested to listen to it because I'm getting it not from rather environmental specialist. I mean, of course, you are an environment specialist, but then you are a software engineer, and then see the interest that you have in the Sinharaja forest. So I would like to hear it from you.
yes. So we all know like Singaraja rainforest like has so many endemic species. Especially we hear about the birds and the amphibians. Since we already know about that, I'm not going to talk about them. I'm going to talk about a few things that you don't hear day to day
Much,
about
yeah.
Singaraja. One thing is that the Singaraja rainforest uh, has the last two remaining lowland rainforest elephants uh, found in Sri Lanka. That's really unfortunate because there's only two left, and both happen to be males. That's even worse. Uh,
Uh,
right. So if you go back and read about the past history, you will find that not only Singaraj, but some of the smaller rainforests like Kanneli rainforest, which is not so popular but it's important, smaller but important, they also used to have rainforest elephants. But Kanneli lost, I believe, lost the last rainforest elephant in the 80s, and it's extinct over there. Singharaja, like if you go back hundreds of years, there's been a lot of rainforest elephants. Uh, there's uh, uh, there's known to be at least 10 rainforest elephants, uh, several decades
that were
ago.
there.
But they because poaching, habitat fragmentation, and all, only two elephants remain. And these are not your typical dry zone elephant that you see in Yala and Vidawal. These are completely different kind of elephants. And unfortunately, there's only two male elephants left, and we know it's a matter of time before we
We
completely
lose both
lose,
of them.
and then they go extinct. And these two elephants actually they're look trying to. I mean, they're in their peak. They are they're in their middle ages. Like they're in the peak age. Where they are looking for mates, and they're kind of going out of the rainforest, going through fragmented forest patches, going through villages, trying to look for mates. We know they're not going to find it because there's no female elephant in there.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's really unfortunate. Um, and it's also home to a few leopards, right? And back in 2013, a very rare black leopard was found on a poacher's snare, and it died eventually. And black leopards are almost unheard of, in Sri Lanka, very rare, right? But every time we find a black leopard, it's unfortunately found trapped, almost dying, and eventually within hours it dies.
Yeah.
Another one died, I think, last year or year before that, in
Few
the
died
peak,
like that.
yes, peak buildings. So, there's a few remaining leopards, and I believe there might be at least one more black leopard there because the black adaptation gives them in the rainforest. It helps them hunt easier, right? I mean, if you're black, you're in the rainforest, it's dark, it's hard to see. And so those are the megafauna of Sinharaja, not many talk about because there's only few remaining. But uh, for a conservationist, it's sad to see that we come to this state where just we are almost at the end of near extinction of the rainforest elephants and the leopards, especially the black leopards of Sinharaja. And that's one thing I wanted to tell. The other thing is, so per the Gazette issued in 2019, Sinharaja was expanded, but it still excluded a couple of important rainforests, namely the Kudumiria rainforest and the Delgoda conservation forest. Both are in the northern sector. And I don't know why, but my guess is that they are so fragmented, they are so encroached that forest department probably considered them they gone anyway. They don't.
No more considered as forests.
Yes, but just these are still rainforest, and if you go there, you see a lot of endemic species and sometimes geological features that might even rival Sinharaja. So we cannot just give up hope on them. And yes, and the third thing I want to mention is that so Singaraja rainforest, if you look, feeds a lot of rivers, right? It feeds the Ginganga on the southern end, and it
Okay.
eventually feeds the Kaluganga on the northern end. Right? There's a whole bunch of rivers like Kudava River, Delgoda River. There's a whole bunch of rivers in the northern end. They eventually feed the Kaluganga. And and but if you look at these rivers, most of them are not bordering Singaraja anymore, right? Singaraja rainforest itself has lost these riverine rainforests. Right? The riverine rainforests are the most biodiverse, but it has lost all these. Right? There's only a few like meters here and there where the river really directly borders Singaraja. But all the other places, you see the river completely cut off, right? Encroached, and there's not even a buffer zone, right? People have built houses and hotels right till the edge of the river. And
Yeah.
interestingly enough, actually, I happened to watch this YouTube program on rivers recently, and in Sri Lanka, right, Kaluganga, and I was looking at after the rain, right? It's the Kaluganga is uh, all muddy and all, right? So you can
Yes.
see all this mud. When streams originate from Singaraja and they go to the rivers there, those are pristine, clear, fresh water. I mean,
Pure
still
water.
pure water as clear as it can get. There's not even a drop of mud.
Yes.
So all this mud is accumulated because there's so much deforestation, encroachment of the river buffer zones, right? People are not considering, river buffer zones and just, clear cutting everything, not protecting the river. So So those are the three things about Sinharaja I want to mention, especially that no one talks about. Is that it's important that we recreate this lost riverine rainforest of Sinharaja.
Okay, lot of details. So those who have joined us, this is Srianta Pereira, and then he's the settler, Rainforest Protectors Trust, and even though he's a software engineer, he's doing a lot to protect Sinharaja specifically. Not that the other forests are not important, but single-handedly with a bunch of people who are interested in the same cause, he's doing that. So my next question is, uh, you were talking about rainforest protectors as an association or a bunch of people getting together, and then you have the rainforest protectors trust. Now, how is the transformation? Are these working as two separate entities? How they are connected? What's the relationship?
Yeah, so they are connected in the sense, we are all like together, like we know each other, right? We started from the same organization, and we set up like as a legal entity, though we set up Rainforest Protectors Trust, registered with the land registry in Colombo, because the reason was, okay, we need to protect real acres of these privately owned forest patches, because uh, previously, uh, so under Rainforest Protectors of Sri Lanka, we would find out that there is this deforestation happening like in the buffer zone of Sinharaja. We would alert the Forest Conservation Department, and the reply most often we get is, "Oh, we
It's a
cannot do
private
anything
land.
about it. This is a private land, and we just all we can do is just let it be deforested." So I was very upset about it, and also coming back to the 3 points I just mentioned about before, right? In the northern sectors, especially, we have this unprotected forests, and then the rivers being completely cut off from Singaraja, and the fragmented forest, uh, and the elephants not being able to go from one patch of forest to the other without going through a village, right? And they then you have the human elephant conflict. So, so that's when we decided, okay, we needed some establishment organization to purchase and permanently protect these privately owned forest lands, to create a protected buffer zone around Singaraj, and also these biodiversity corridors between these fragmented forest patches. And so that, we first registered this in 2017. That's when we registered it under land registry, and since then we have purchased and protected 4 lands, totaling 24 acres to date. Right?
Wow.
Yes. Now, yeah. So I can quickly give a brief introduction of those lands. So the first land was 4.5
You
acres.
have time. You can explain in detail, please.
Okay. So the first land was 4.5 acres. This was directly bordering the Kudava River. So in the northern Singaraja, I mentioned, right, the Kudava River now is separate from Singaraja. It's not uh, directly bordering it. So because of years of deforestation. So here we found a good opportunity to protect directly riverfront land, forest land, um, so that we can protect riverine rainforest, because that's the most biodiverse. So we purchased this 4.5 acres that was directly facing Kudava River.
Okay.
That was, and I put my money on that because you had to lead by example, right? So
Wow.
that's the first one I
You walk the talk.
yes, right, because I cannot tell, hey, let's protect this, and then say, okay, you do that. I don't want to do that, right? You have to lead by example. And then we reached out to organizations and corporates as well. Unfortunately, when it comes to protecting real acres of forest, it's hard to get funding through carbon capture, or, right, in carbon credits, or even other organizations like for overseas organizations, because a lot of these organizations tend to give grants for reforestation, but not necessarily for land purchase. We have found it, uh, unfortunately. But so we focus more on the corporate side, and also crowdfunding. That's where our focus is. And so the second land we bought was a beautiful 2 acres. This was near Singaraja border. There's only one
So
more
Sri
land.
Lanka, now when you say land, these are not mere bare land, right? There's certain amount of
Yeah,
trees, at least. Not, let's not call it a forest, but at least there's uh,
actually, actually, these lands, now this the second land we bought, it has some giant trees, and you know, one of the things I like about that land is that there's a beautiful stream, right? And in that stream, in the middle is kind of like an island, small island, and in that island we have this giant tree, and it's so like it's hard to capture on a photograph, right? I mean, you have to be there to experience that thing, and that's something, so like it's a geologic feature that I think,
miracle.
yeah, you don't. I mean, you visit Singaraja on the normal trail, you're not going to find these kind of geological features, right? Uh, and yeah, so going back to that land, 2 acres, beautiful. I consider that as a primary rainforest, almost primary rainforest. Primary rainforest is the original rainforest, right? Uh, uh, and that was thanks to
Second land.
MAS, MAS Active. So they private limited, and they funded the whole purchase. And then after that, so there's a small land behind that. We are hoping to eventually, when it comes on sale, we are hoping to buy that, because once we protect that, then it's a fully secure buffer zone there. And then the third land, soon after, we bought another 7.5 acres recently. Uh, this time again, MAS Active and MAS Intimates both joined together and helped us fund that. This one directly bought Stingray, so that boundary, like we took forest officers there, we verified the boundary, and the boundary posts are still there, and and the land is fully forested. I mean, this is gigantic for trees. Sometimes it's even hard to find in Singaraja, because you have to think, right? Singaraja was heavily logged in the 1970s,
Yes.
and the trail is actually the common trail that people take, is the trail that used by the loggers. So the trees around there was already logged in the 70s, and still trying to recover, right?
Yes.
So but here, some of these lands outside of the trail, but directly bordering Singaraja, have more massive trees than you will find in Singaraja, because those loggers were not able to come to this area, because the terrain is pretty tough. The angle is around 60 degrees. I mean, I mean, it's not
I
easy
think
to hike.
I think we need to whisper this, because those fellows who are interested in logging further, which is happening even today,
Yeah.
shouldn't hear this.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So, so the lands we are buying right now and protecting, those private forest lands, have some great, I mean, massive trees, right? And the fourth land is more important, right? We are right now in the process of buying it, 10 acres, and exactly opposite, like joining this previous 7.5 acre land, and behind directly bordering Singaraja Rainforest as well. And again, this has massive trees, and on top of that, it even has this geologic feature, uh, right? Where a stream is going through a cave. You're not going to easily find that in Singaraja, right? So some of these have like so much like primary forest, as well as this geological features that you're not going to easily find
Unique.
in when you are hiking in Singaraja, and that's another reason to protect. And now that we have formed these contiguous lands, they're almost contiguous. And honestly, though, when I first, when we first started Rainforest Protectors Trust, even I didn't imagine that we could be kind of successful in getting contiguous kind of forest land, because I was kind of afraid we might get one land in one area, maybe 1 kilometer further we might get another. How are we going to connect this? Like, but you know, my advice again is start from somewhere, right? And that's what I learned. Right? Can't wait for the perfect condition. So I had to start from somewhere, and then we'll figure out a way, right? So the way we found out was the northern area of Sinharaja had a lot of private forest lands left. Now, not everything is available to protect at any given time, but we'll start from somewhere, and the others will come, and we'll um, start protecting them as we go on. Okay, I forgot one more important thing about that
Yeah.
fourth land is that the fourth land was entirely uh, possible to protect because of the crowdfunding campaign. We originally, it did take quite a long time. It took about 2 years to raise the funds. We started late 2019. The original was to plan buy a 4.5 acre somewhere else, or rather 4 acres. Uh, but but then the seller decided to keep it for the time being. So we were looking for other lands, and then we found the 10 acres, which is of course larger, better, right, for a slightly more price, but not a whole lot. And so again, thank you to all the individual donors. This is entirely possible because of the individual donors. Right? A lot of more than 100 individual donors contributed, and together we were able to raise the funds. Uh, so right now our journey has been through partnerships with corporates, MAS, active and MAS intimates, as well as uh, these crowdfunding individual donors.
My gratitude to those individuals, mass active, mass intimates from mass holdings. I don't think people even know that these corporates are doing these kind of things, other than what you probably put on your LinkedIn page or a Facebook page. People should know. I mean, you could go and spend your CSR money on various things, and I'm not going to say this one is better than the other one. But then when you go and protect a tree, and especially when you protect Singaraja and then surrounding other rainforests, you are helping an entire nation. You are actually helping the entire world. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
Uh,
And if you don't mind, I have a few things I need to tell.
please, you have time. We have around
Yes,
maybe another 15 minutes.
yes. Uh, so the 24 acres that we have protected so far seem like small compared to the entire Singanaj, right? But
Yeah.
what's important is the location where we have protected them. They are directly bordering, or on almost directly bordering, and they are forming this protected buffer zone that Singaraja doesn't have. Like today, none of the forest reserves in Sri Lanka has a protected buffer zone. Not even Singaraja World Heritage Rainforest. Right. So encroachment happens. You, you
Straight into
go.
the rainforest.
Yes, and you can go on Google Earth or Google Maps and see yourself, right? A lot of encroachment is happening right to the border, right? Even recently, about 3 years ago, you can clearly see like a large extent of pristine forest was burned down and cut, and you can clearly see that on the satellite images. And that land happens to be very close to the protected ones we are now protecting. Um, so what's important is that the 24 acres that we protected for contiguous like lands, they are protecting hundreds of thousands of acres behind them, because now someone has to go, like it is acting as a protected buffer zone. They have to cross that, and um, so we are continuously monitoring and making sure. Our goal is to make sure deforestation doesn't happen in that area, and we are also hoping to uh, have a conservation center coming up. We don't want to cut the forest to build a conservation center, so we are going to. Our plan is to find a suitable conservation center location close by the main road, which uh, connecting to the Kudawat
So that the conservationists and the others who are interested parties could go there and observe what exactly is going on.
Exactly. Yes,
Others,
there's a lot of people who are interested in volunteering, um, and so the establishment of the conservation center will have the volunteers come. And one of the things we want to do is create this native endemic uh, plant nursery, right? So when people plant trees, I mean, they go to a plant nursery, what you find is these common species, like everyone's planting kumbuk, me, and then teak and mahogany, right?
yeah,
Now, kumbuk and me are okay. They are more like
native.
no, yeah, native endemic. I mean, more like intermediate dry zone species, intermediate to dry zone. But again, those are um, two trees, right? I mean, when you look at Sinharaja, you have hundreds of different species. Some trees, I mean, they are near extinct. Like somebody was asking me, "Do you have Dorna trees?" I said, "Okay, I don't think we've come across anyone who has found a Dorna tree anywhere close by, right?" So these are near extinct species. And when you go to a plant nursery today and people are trying to reforest, you're pretty much you planting the same species. And by the way, the teak and mahogany is fine to plant on private land. I think it's good that I myself plant a few on my land as well, because that way, like, we can reduce the need to cut timber in the forest. But they should, this especially mahogany, should never be planted near a forest because they tend to be invasive. They are not native to Sri Lanka, and I've heard reports that certain forests, especially Udavatta in Kandy, have a big problem with mahogany being invasive species because they displace the native trees eventually. So, so when you are planting trees, you have to be careful in that you want to plant native trees, endemic species especially, and unfortunately, those finding endemic trees, plants are really hard. And what we are hoping to do is now that we have protected 24 acres of land, and those lands have endemic species, plenty of seeds to find. And once we set up the conservation center, we can have an endemic plant nursery there.
Yeah, uh, that's a lot of information. So we have Ahmad Munir. He's originally from Kandima. He's in Colombo. He's a entrepreneur. Thank you very much for your service to save the forest in Sri Lanka, than complaining to the authorities. Yeah, I mean, people appreciate and people should get to know, and then they could come and volunteer, help each other to protect our own motherland. This is not that, I mean, rainforest belongs to everybody.
Yes.
Yeah. So, uh, yeah, you want to say anything else, or can I ask you a next question?
Go ahead. Yes.
So, moving forward, what kind of support you are expecting from the corporates and public
Yes.
individuals?
Yeah. So we still have a lot of uh, work to do, right? There's a lot, hundreds of acres of, or even thousands of acres are still unprotected in this area, right? They're still under private ownership, and we want to extend the protected buffer zone that we have created. We also want to create some biodiversity corridors between those fragmented forests. So the thing that we faced is that okay, we need more funding, right? So
Yeah.
so for corporates, I hope that other corporates will also join and help protect these forests as and individuals. Like we also urge you, like if you go to our website rainforestprotectorstrust.org, and uh, you can and there's a link to donate, right? You can look at the current projects that we are doing and the completed projects, and you can pay, you can donate to a project. And as I mentioned, this new year, our main goal is to find a suitable place for a conservation center. So we have to find a land, and we might, if we are building, we are hoping to build like kind of a eco concept conservation center. But we might also, if there's a possibility, we might purchase an existing home, because there's some nice, there are some properties that are suitable for this if we can, if the seller is willing. So one thing is that the funding is the major obstacle there.
Obstacle,
So
yeah.
yeah, so if you can, I mean, it would be great if you can, donate, become a recurring donator, or become a member. Now, if you don't have the funds, you can still uh, help us through maybe talking to your contacts you have, whether it's corporate or individual. Uh, Tell about what we are doing, and visit us on social media, right? We have Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, everywhere. So share, we periodically post content, and not only asking for donations, but we also trying to educate the public.
That's most
So
important.
yes, and so if you can share those, yeah, that would be a great help. And you know, if you want to volunteer, right? So our sister organization, Rainforest Protectors of Sri Lanka, has some couple of reforestation projects going on right now. One in Balangod and one in Rakwana, and you know, you can contact us through the website, and we'll get you hooked up with the coordinator there. And
So it is little labor intensive projects these are.
yes, so unfortunately, yes. So the reforestation, the issue is that when a forest is completely destroyed by fire, quickly the invasives get hold, right? The invasives are the kakil, the mana, pangiri, those kind of things, and they kind of completely cover the area. Now you can't even plant a tree because the invasives are there. Now you have to clear the invasives. It's a very labor intensive thing, and that's why, like, uh, sometimes even the reforestation projects actually cost more in the long term, because now we had to hire, because usually a chap like me from Colombo, we are not, don't have the fitness to work under the sun for long hours, right?
Yeah.
So we had to hire, we had to
Suitable
hire some
people.
laborers, and uh, prepare the land, and then you plant the tree, and then those minor seeds have fallen. Now they, after rain, they start growing, and they grow faster than the trees.
Yes,
So then
yes.
they overtake again. It's kind of this endless cycle, and you have to continually look, and uh, you know you have to be there. You cannot just plant a tree and go and say, "Oh, I planted a tree; it will be grown." No, it won't happen, right? Unless you're continuously going there, taking care of the tree, taking care of the land.
Yeah. Okay, Sriyanta, I mean that makes the last question and the answer. So to the audience, uh, Sriyanta Pereira is the Settler Rainforest Protectors Trust. Even though he's professionally a software engineer, he's working so hard with a bunch of like-minded people to protect Sinharaja rainforest, the lungs of Sri Lanka. And instead of reforesting and doing any other thing, he and his team has decided to buy privately owned land surrounding or close to the pristine rainforest, and then uh, attach them back to the the forest, and then the ownership is not anymore private, so that there's no danger of them someone building a hotel or any other thing around it. So it's a great cause, and then he's not doing it for himself. He's not doing it for his kids alone. It's for many generations to come. So I would like all of you to help us by way of going to the website rainforestprotectors.org, and then work with other corporates, individuals. You can donate and you can see what they do. As he has Sriyanta mentioned earlier, the Mass Active and Mass, what's the other one, Sriyanta?
Intimates.
Intimates have
Yeah.
done a great help to the nation.
Yeah, I want to correct here a little bit. So rainforestprotectors.org is the uh, first organization we started, and we are doing. So if you want to do reforestation, if you want to join us with
That is where you go.
reforestation work, yeah, as I mentioned, we have two reforestation projects in Rakwana and Balangoda. So if you want to join us with that or contribute financially, yes, visit rainforestprotectors.org. And if you want to help us purchase and protect privately held forest lands, you can go to rainforestprotectorstrust.org. Now, you know, like there are common people around here. Like so, even if you go to the wrong site and submit, I think we can get you over to the correct
So
flow.
let me
Yes,
get the right details here. So it goes like this.
yes, yeah. So
Rainforest
Rainforest Protectors
Trust.
Trust is the ORG is the organization that protects land, privately held forest lands,
Yeah, so
bordering.
you could go here and see how much you could contribute. If you know an organization who is looking for a great CSR project and they have a budget, and this is going to be a big project for them, for everybody in the country. So connect us, connect Srianta, or go individually, go and help. I'm going to spread the word as much as possible. I'm going to make a smaller video of this and I'm going to share it, asking everybody to reshare it. So Srianta, thank you very much for. Uh, I mean, I I have no words to show my gratitude as a Sri Lankan, as a human being, to what you are doing, what your team is doing. But anyway, thank you very much while you are having a busy schedule for coming to this show and then help us understand what you do to protect this. Because you can't expect the government or the ministers or some of the officials to do this. We know not everybody is transparent or honest. Everybody is behind. They all have certain agendas. So, but then being a software engineer, you have uh, got together with like-minded people, and I'm also someone like you. Of course, I mean I can't come even close to you. If you ask me, for last 3 4 years I have planted only 3 trees, so
Okay, you
I
need to
have
do
failed.
more.
I have failed miserably. I need to do more when I
Yeah,
look at
and
what you.
yeah, and I'm just the messenger, right? I mean, I wish that I had that magic thing that converts the nature. I mean, there's so many nature lovers, but not a whole lot of conservationists. The
Yes,
conservationists, like I mentioned, things like when you go to a beautiful place, the first thing we think is this protected, right? Before even taking the photograph. So I hope that other nature lovers will take that extra step to become a conservationist. And if you if you don't want to join us, I mean, I would say go ahead and whether you want to
do
start your own
something.
organization or maybe you already live close by a forest that you can protect yourself. Go ahead and do it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. Siddhanta, I'm also thinking about working with you with kids. I would like to invite you one day where you would come and talk about what you are doing to, bunch of kids, to educate and enlighten them so that they will continue what you are doing right now. One day I'll organize a session with you, privately held event. Maybe you can come on Zoom or whatever and then help. So
Definitely.
Sriyanta, thank you very much for coming here.
Thank
And
you for having me on your program. I think
yeah,
I really
and
enjoyed
then
it.
yeah, all our viewers who are joining from Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, thank you very much. See you next week with another great guest and with another knowledge sharing session on Sri Lanka's first LinkedIn live talk show. And I hope everybody will have a great night and stay safe. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.